It was 1995, a year of heroism, the year of GoldenEye, Braveheart, Die Hard with a Vengeance, and the original Judge Dredd. But let's not forget our video game heroes, for this was also the year of Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger was an innovative RPG, or role-playing game, created by Square, not only because of its battle mechanics, but also its story, which had you traveling all throughout time. Time travel, at least back in the mid-90s, was not a big theme in video games. Most games focused on fantasy themes like fighting vampires or saving a princess, or they were more along the lines of sci-fi with super fighting robots. And then you had your good old fighting games and beat-em-ups, like Street Fighter and Final Fight. But Chrono Trigger came from a company quickly earning a reputation for creating grade-A RPGs, most notably the Final Fantasy series. After almost going bankrupt in the late 1980s, Square was on its A-game. They meant business, and that business was now Chrono Trigger. The aforementioned battle mechanics that made this game so unique and challenging can't be fully covered in this video, but I'll go over some of them briefly so you get an idea of what made this title so amazing. As opposed to usual turn-based RPGs where all of your characters are lined up neatly on one side of the screen and your foes are lined up on the other side, Chrono Trigger said, "Screw that!" and scattered your characters here and there to seemingly guard against the ambush of monsters. What's even more interesting is that oftentimes your foes would be moving around the battlefield, and instead of everybody getting equal turns, you had a rest period. And what this rest period did was make you wait for an allotted amount of time based on that character's speed stats before you could use that character again. In the meantime, your opponents are probably attacking, but they have a rest period as well. However, you can't see theirs. These two simple concepts made the game far more interesting and added a lot of excitement into a genre that could oftentimes become rather dull. Now, as I've said before, Forgotten Legends is not about shows or games, but characters. So let's get to the guest of honor, shall we? Around 12,000 BC, Prince Janus, or Jaki in Japan, was but a small, introverted boy whose only friends were his pet cat and its big sister, Shala. He lived in an age known as Antiquity, where a people called the Enlightened Ones used a powerful machine called Mammon, named after a demon of greed, to draw power from an apocalyptic being named Lavos, so that they might achieve immortality. One such user was none other than the Queen herself, Janus's mother. However, the Mammon machine did not do what it was meant to, and instead, the Queen, Shala, and the three creators of Mammon, and Janus, were all transported in front of the very creature Queen Zeal had attempted to steal power from. It was then that the prince was sucked into a time rift, transporting him into the Middle Ages, where he was found by three blue imps and a mystic called Ozzy. The mystics would have likely killed him on the spot had Janus not defended himself with magic, which, in the time of the Middle Ages, was impossible for humans. Seeing the great power within the boy, Ozzy took him in, raised and groomed him to be a mighty leader of the mystics' armies. It was in this time that Janus took up the name Magus, so that all would know by the very mention of his name that his magic was stronger than any other. With his great power, his army, and a title that struck fear into the hearts of man, he donned a frightening cape and wielded a weapon fit for death himself. And with all this, he declared war on the kingdom of Guardia. Though his intentions were unknown to most, they were eventually revealed much later in the story. For the better half of the game, you are stuck back in time, 600 AD to be exact, where the terrible villain named Magus is terrorizing the kingdom of Guardia. Now, in the Japanese version of this game, Magus is called Mao, which translates to Demon King. Magus is now the Lord of the Mystics, a group of powerful humanoid monsters with armies at their command. Here, in the Middle Ages, Magus is eventually confronted by the heroes of our story, and his power is finally revealed. The battle with Magus has two phases. In the first phase, he uses a barrier spell, which has incredibly high physical protection, and is also only vulnerable to one type of magic and absorbs all other types. However, when struck by the weakness, he uses Barrier Change, which changes the type of magic he is weak against. On top of that, he will use a powerful spell that is, of all things, the magic element he's weak against. Most commonly, he will use the second level of that spell, for example, Fire 2 or Lightning 2, which hit all party members. But he also uses a devastating technique called Dark Bomb that deals higher damage to anyone in range. In the next phase, Magus accesses his ultimate spell called Dark Matter, which can utterly wipe out your team if they are not at full health. The only drawback he suffers during the second phase is that he cannot sustain a barrier while charging Dark Matter. But unlike most sorcerer types, Magus is not a wimpy dweeb with a book who dies after one hit once his barrier is down. Magus's physical prowess is also notable, as he is able to withstand many direct melee attacks and still charge up for Dark Matter. His scythe techniques are also rather impressive, which is quite atypical for a mage. After his defeat, however, he is not slain. The terrible creature called Lavos creates a rift in time, sending the heroes and Magus into different places in time. Believing his sister to have been killed by Lavos, he uses this time rift as a way to bend time and space so that he might return to the palace before the terrible incident and save his beloved sister. By using his knowledge of the future and present, he earns a position as a royal advisor, going by the simple title of the Prophet. By doing so, he eventually gets himself into place so that he might prevent Lavos from killing his sister. But even with all the power he has built up over the years, all the training he had in the Middle Ages, he is easily defeated. It is during this point in the plot that we realize he merely used the mystics and the war as a means of obtaining power so that he may one day avenge Shala by killing Lavos. Not too long after, Magus puts aside his pride for the sake of Shala and joins with the very heroes who tried to kill him in order to fight Lavos in all its forms throughout the many centuries the game encompasses. However, despite his best efforts, Shala was still lost in the debris of the collapsing Ocean Palace, never to be seen again. At the end of the game, Magus still holds on to what little hope can remain, declaring that he shall search for his sister in 12,000 BC without fail. And so, after the defeat of his greatest enemy, Lavos, his new mission in life is to find Shala, whatever condition she may be in. His icy exterior, but warm brotherly love for Shala make for a most unique villain. Paired with his great power and confidence, as well as his tenacity, Magus is clearly a character for the ages. Which makes it even sadder that despite the huge popularity of this character and his game, Chrono Trigger was never given a proper sequel. To date, Chrono Trigger is considered the best RPG for the Super Nintendo, and to some, is the reigning champion of the genre, regardless of console. For this reason, I have chosen Magus to be the third forgotten legend. Although he may be forgotten by Square Enix, he will live on in the hearts of Chrono Trigger fans everywhere.
If history is to change, let it change. If the world is to be destroyed, then so be it. If my fate is to die, I must simply laugh.